I think so many people are watching women's basketball right now. It all started from the national championship game, and I've been dealing with this for 2 years now. People are talking about women's basketball that you never would think that we'd be talking about women's basketball. People are pulling up to games. We got celebrities coming to games, sold out arenas, like just because of one single game. Yeah, the reason why we watching women's basketball is not just because of one person, it's because of me too, and I want y'all to realize that.
Remember that insane NCAA championship game? Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese. It was absolute madness. We're talking about a showdown that had everyone glued to their screens. 10 million people tuned in to watch. That's crazy for women's college basketball. Usually those numbers are reserved for the men's games or the Olympics, but this was different. The game itself was intense, but something happened that changed everything. Picture this. The final seconds are ticking down. LSU's in the lead, and you can feel the tension in the air. Then, out of nowhere, Reese does something no one saw coming. She walks right up to Clark, looks her dead in the eye, and points to her ring finger, right there, in front of everyone. The crowd went absolutely wild. It was like a scene from a movie. But this was real life. This was the kind of moment that breaks the internet.
At what point were you waiting to pull out this?
Man,
kind of the Caitlin Clark.
Caitlin Clark is a hell of a
incredible
player for sure. But I don't take disrespect lightly, and she disrespected Alexis. I wanted to pick her pocket, but I had a moment at the end of the game, and I was in my bag. I was in my moment, yeah.
And break the internet it did. Everyone was talking about it. Social media exploded. Some people were loving it, calling Reese a queen for her confidence. Others, they weren't so thrilled, saying it was unsportsmanlike. But you know what? That's exactly what made it so powerful. Reese later said, "I think just being able to be in that moment of it happening, you never realized how something can really change your life." And she was right. That single gesture changed the game. It wasn't just about basketball anymore. It was about personality, about showing who you are on the court. Clark got it too. She said, "I think it's just the emotion and the passion that we play with. People love to see that, and I think that's maybe not something that was always appreciated in women's sports." She hit the nail on the head. This wasn't just a rivalry, it was a statement. That moment, it made women's basketball must-see TV. Suddenly, people who'd never watched a women's game in their lives were tuning in. They wanted to see what all the fuss was about, and when they watched, they saw some of the best basketball being played, period. But you know what's even crazier? This was just the beginning. That championship game, that moment between Clark and Reese, it was like lighting a fuse, and the explosion that followed, it changed women's basketball forever. The rivalry between Clark and Reese wasn't just about two players anymore. It became a symbol of the changing face of women's sports. It showed that women could be fierce competitors, that they could show emotion and confidence on the court, and people loved it. They couldn't get enough of it. You think that college showdown was intense? Just wait till you hear what happened when Clark and Reese hit the WNBA. We're talking record-breaking performances, sold-out arenas, and a twist that nobody saw coming. The WNBA draft was like a feeding frenzy. Everyone wanted a piece of Clark and Reese, and boy did they deliver. These rookies came out swinging, but in totally different ways. Clark, she's out there shooting from the logo like it's nothing. Reese, she's absolutely owning the paint, grabbing rebounds like they're going out of style. Let's talk about Clark for a second. This girl is putting up numbers that make veteran players do a double take. We're talking over 16 points and 6 assists per game. For a rookie, that's insane. She's not just playing, she's rewriting the record books. And her impact, it's off the charts. The Indiana Fever are pulling in crowds of over 15,000 fans in away games.
She's the first rookie to win WNBA Player of the Month since the award's inception in 2010, and last night it was no exception. They were sky high for Caitlin Clark and the Fever, but to start the season, they had a little bit of a rough go of it. They lost their first 5 games. They ended up 1-8 through their first 9 games, and during that first month, the playoffs, they didn't feel realistic at all. Indy entered the Olympic break 11-15 on the year, and then they really turned it around. They've won 7 of their 8 since. They clinched a playoff berth for the first time since 2016, which, by the way, was the last year of Hall of Famer and franchise icon Tamika Catching.
That's right, away games. They're even having to move some games to bigger arenas just to fit everyone in. But don't sleep on Reese. She's over here making history of her own. 10 straight double-doubles. No rookie has ever done that before. Not in the WNBA, not ever. She's a rebounding machine, and she's got the Chicago Sky fans going wild. They're averaging nearly 2,500 fans on the road. That's a 4,000 increase from last season. Talk about star power. Now, you'd think with all this success, the rivalry between Clark and Reese would be heating up even more. But here's where things get interesting. After one of their games, something happened that had had everyone talking. And no, it wasn't trash talk or finger pointing. Reese walked up to Clark and said, "Continue to be a great player." And Clark, she fired right back with, "Continue to be a great player as well, and keep elevating the game and go win it." It was a moment of pure respect right there on the court for everyone to see. Turns out that fierce rivalry we all thought we were seeing, it was never really about beef between them. It was about two incredible athletes pushing each other to be better, to elevate the game. Reese even said, "We brought a lot of fans to this league, and I think we're going to continue to do that." They know they're not just playing for themselves anymore. They're changing the face of women's basketball. So here we are watching these two rookies tear up the league, breaking records and filling arenas. But more than that, we're seeing them show a level of sportsmanship and mutual respect that's taking everyone by surprise. Clark and Reese aren't just living up to the hype, they're exceeding it, and they're doing it with class. This isn't just good for them or for their teams, it's good for the entire sport of women's basketball. And trust me, we're all lucky to be watching it unfold. So Clark and Reese are tearing it up on the court, right? But that's just the beginning. Imagine this, games moving to bigger arenas because they can't fit all the fans, NBA superstars dropping their jaws, and get this, the WNBA is about to negotiate a new TV deal. Coincidence? I don't think so. Let's talk about what's really going down. The WNBA is exploding right now. We're not just seeing a few more fans here and there. We're talking sold out arenas, record-breaking viewership, and a buzz around women's basketball that we've never seen before. And you know who's at the center of it all? Yep, Clark and Reese. But it's not just the average Joe getting hyped about these two. Some of the biggest names in basketball are taking notice. Magic Johnson, Shaq, Dwyane Wade. They're all talking about Clark and Reese like they're the second coming of basketball. And when legends like that start paying attention, you know something big is happening. Take Shaq, for example. He's not easily impressed, but Clark's got him singing a different tune. He said, "She's doing stuff we never seen before. If I say 10 times, you're not gonna hit the shot, and you hit the shot, that means you the truth." Now that's high praise coming from one of the greatest to ever do it. And it's not just talk. The impact is real and it's measurable. Games are literally being moved to bigger arenas because they can't fit all the fans in the regular ones. We're talking about women's basketball here, folks. This kind of demand is unprecedented. But here's where it gets really interesting. The WNBA is gearing up to negotiate a new TV deal, and you better believe Clark and Reese are playing a big part in that. Magic Johnson himself pointed out that this increased interest, driven by players like Clark and Reese, is a huge opportunity for growth in viewership and revenue. Even the WNBA commissioner, Kathy Engelbert, is pumped about what's happening. She said, "Apathy is the death of a brand. Nobody's apathetic about the WNBA because we've brought in so many new fans into what we call the fan funnel this year." That's not just good news for the WNBA, it's a game changer for women's sports as a whole. But here's the thing, with all this attention comes pressure. These are still young players, barely out of college, and suddenly they're carrying the hopes and expectations of an entire league on their shoulders. How are they handling it? That's the million-dollar question. Because as exciting as all this is, it's also a lot for anyone to handle, let alone rookies in their first pro season. But so far, Clark and Reese seem to be taking it all in stride, playing their game, and changing the face of women's basketball in the process. Remember when women's basketball was all about being ladylike on the court? Yeah, Clark and Reese threw that rulebook right out the window. We're talking trash talk, celebrations, and attitude for days. But get this, some people are loving it, while others, they're losing their minds. So what's the deal? Are these two saving women's basketball or ruining it? Let's break it down. Clark and Reese aren't just players, they're game changers. And I'm not talking about their skills, though trust me, we'll get to those in a second. I'm talking about how they're reshaping the entire image of women's sports. These two couldn't be more different on the court. Clark, she's all finesse. She's got court vision that'll make your head spin and a shot so smooth it should be illegal. Reese, on the other hand, pure power. She's a force of nature in the paint, grabbing rebounds like they're going out of style. But it's not just about how they play, it's about how they carry themselves. The swagger, the confidence, the in-your-face attitude. They're not just playing the game, they're owning it. And boy, are they letting everyone know about it. You've got Clark dropping threes from the logo and pointing to her wrist like, "Yeah, I know what time it is." Then there's Reese dominating the boards and flexing on her opponents. They're trash talking, they're celebrating big plays, they're showing emotion, and guess what? People are eating it up. Caitlin Clark put it best when she said, "I think it's just the emotion and the passion that we play with. People love to see that, and I think that's maybe not something that was always appreciated in women's sports." She's right on the money. This isn't your grandma's women's basketball, but here's where it gets wild. In one game, Clark hit 9 3-pointers. 9. That's the kind of performance that makes you question if the game is set to easy mode. And Reese, she grabbed 20 rebounds in another game. 20, that's not just good, that's video game numbers. Now, not everyone's on board with this new style. Some folks think it's too much, that it's unsportsmanlike. But you know what? Clark and Reese are showing that it's okay to be competitive, to be fierce, to be yourself in women's sports. They're proving that you don't have to choose between being a great athlete and having a big personality. And the craziest part, the way they're handling all this pressure and attention. These are young players, barely out of college, and they're carrying the hopes of an entire league on their shoulders. But they're not just surviving, they're thriving. Magic Johnson, yeah, that Magic Johnson said it best. They've changed college basketball. The ratings don't lie. The numbers don't lie. He's right. Clark and Reese aren't just changing the game on the court. They're changing how we see women's sports, period. And from where I'm sitting, that's a change for the better.